Hi everyone, I'm Luisa Pallares. I'm a group leader here at the Friedrich Miescher Laboratory in Tübingen, and I lead a research group on evolutionary genomics, and we use fruit flies as our model organism. I'll start with the first one. So, fruit flies are just annoying pests. Their brains are too simple to tell us anything. That's an insult to flies. Flies are actually, well, I agree, annoying pests. When they are in your kitchen, they can be very annoying. But their brains are actually very, very complex. They have hundreds of thousands of neurons, so they can do very refined behaviors. They do super sophisticated mating behaviors that all that's driven are controlled by neurons and the brain. They fight, they are aggressive, they court the females to mate, they can escape, they can search for food, they can choose food. They have very clear preferences of what type of things they like. And all these things are regulated by their brains, which are by no means simple. Of course, when you compare them to humans that have hundreds of millions of neurons, flies can have 150,000 or so, which still, it's a decent number that allows them to do very complex behaviors.
Great. So they're more than just annoying kitchen pests.
Just a little bit more than annoying kitchen pests. So studying tiny flies can tell us anything useful about big human diseases like diabetes. I strongly disagree with this statement. Flies are actually extremely useful to study human diseases in particular. There are hundreds of flies that are used as model systems to study disease in humans. So it's very specific diseases. So you find types of flies that we use to study Alzheimer's disease or diabetes, which is a little bit of what we do in the lab. We study how flies respond to high sugar diets. And we can do that with them because we are very similar between humans and flies. So actually you guys are 60% flies. 60% of your genome is exactly the same as we find it in fruit flies, in Drosophila. And it's because of that we have so many things in common at the genetic level that we can actually use them to study disease in humans. But if you go another level, not only the genes, but also what happens to them, a lot of the symptoms are very similar to humans. So for example, in diabetes, flies they develop insulin resistance the same way humans do. They develop obesity when they eat a lot of sugar. And they get basically sick in the same ways that humans do. So yeah, we can use them to study a lot of the things that happen to humans. And that's reflected in the fact that around 6 or 7 Nobel Prizes in medicine have been awarded to researchers that work with fruit flies, for example. Number 3, evolution takes millions of years to observe. That's impossible to be researching a lab experiment. Yeah, so this is a common misconception that evolution takes, millions of years to happen, and this is because we think about evolution as dinosaurs most of the time, right? We think this happened in times that we cannot even imagine, but evolution is basically another word for change, and change happens all the time. So these fruit flies are wonderful study systems to do experimental evolution in the lab, because they reproduce very fast. So it takes them around 2 weeks to have a new generation, which means that in a year you can have around 25 to 30 generations of flies. So a lot of change can happen in that time. So flies are used in experimental evolution in the lab, and as fast as maybe in 2 human years, meaning 50 generations of flies, you can see huge changes, not only in the genome, that's what we study. So the genome changes with time to help them adapt to new environments, for example, to high sugar diets. And one of my favorite examples of experimental evolution that happens super quick in the lab is that people have selected for longevity in Drosophila. So I have asked the question, can I make flies live longer? Which, a lot of humans want to do. So in flies, these guys managed to select flies that could live almost double the number of days that they normally live. So normally they could live around 50 days. And after 100 generations of selection, so you always choose the flies that live longer, they managed to increase this to almost 80 days. All flies are the same. They are just, flies. No, flies are not the same. Every single fly is individual in itself, the same way that humans, we all are individuals on our own. Every single fly has a different genome, has genetic variation, and they experience the environment in a different way, the same way humans do. So flies, if you imagine a population of fly, every single individual is special. They behave differently, they can move faster or slower, they get more or less sick than the others, they have certain behaviors. They have different shapes in their wings. That's also something we study in the lab. So they are very unique, and every single individual is a special combination of environmental effects and genetic effects. So it's just because they're very tiny and we cannot really see that, but if you are able to measure all these traits the way we do it in the lab, then you realize that they are so exciting and fascinating and variable as we are as humans. I have one more. Natural selection is about the survival of the strongest. I like this question because I'm an evolutionary biologist and we do evolutionary biology in my lab. So natural selection is this type of force that makes some individuals survive or not. And this is interesting because it's connected to my last question about variation in flies. So without variation, there's no life. Everything will stop and there won't be evolution or nothing will survive, right? So evolution and biology and life exist because there's variation. And this variation means that some individuals will be better or worse than others in some environments, but the ones that are bad in one environment will be better in a different environment. So this statement that is about survival of the strongest is not correct, in the sense that we always imagine that the strongest is the more aggressive one, the ones that chases females or fights with other males, and it's not necessarily true because it depends on your environment. So you could be the smartest, and that could be the one that survives. You can be the fastest, you can be the one who finds better food, so the most clever one in the population. So it's not necessarily about strength, but it's about which combination of traits make you better in certain particular environment. And that's all what evolution and natural selection is about. It's finding the best combination, not necessarily has to be the strongest one.
Great, thank you very much.
Good. That was all.